Colonel Hideki was enjoying a peaceful stroll along the battlements of Fortress Drakovac. They were a peaceful position, mostly, exceedingly well defended thanks to their strategic position guarding the eastern approaches to Bartelion. Yet the enemy had not dared strike this deep in years. He had been even less busy after what forces they could spare had been pulled away for patrol duty further out in the middle ring. He did not know what to make of it all. They were provisioned for months of siege. With what was left of the original garrison, they could likely stretch that to well over a year. He had but a few hundred soldiers, where there used to be over 1,000. A full wing of dragons, numbering some 5 beasts of battle. They used to house 3 such formations. Sure, there was plenty of logistics to oversee, but such matters were best left in the hands of those who made a living out of it. That is to say, the colonel was rather surprised to hear the frantic sound of claws hammering on stone, turning to see a sergeant come full-on sprinting at him before skidding to a halt on the smooth stone. "There is something in storeroom 4. We don't know what it is." "What do you mean, something?" Hideki questioned, setting to follow the sergeant, the two of them setting into a fast trot, as they made for the stairs down from the thick-set tower. "Blue, shimmering disc, sir. Likely magical?" "Some sort of portal. Have we posted a guard?" Don't know, sir. And yes, sir." What's that?" "Me, Chiluki. I come in peace." The rather strange and certainly terrified creature responded, with what must have taken a fair dose of bravery. "And what is it saying?" "We don't know, Corporal. Now shut up. It appears unarmed. Lower your weapons. For now," Hideki ordered, and his men of course obeyed. Their strange-looking guest did seem to calm down, at least somewhat, which was a relief. It spoke. It was intelligent, wore clothes, yet had no wings. It also appeared to be fur like a deer, or perhaps a brown forest wolf. The colonel took a step forward and bowed to their new guest. He had no idea what he may be dealing with, but it appeared the feeling was mutual. The guests returned the bow just as yet more of them started pouring from what now was most certainly a portal of some description, yet how it was staying open for so long was beyond Hideki. There was a brief moment of silence as the new arrivals stared at the situation they now found themselves in, before they raised weapons, the dragonettes doing likewise. They carried an odd, tube-like device set into a wooden stock. Many bits of both brass and steel clearly visible, with what must be some mechanical function. "Incredibly expensive, likely dangerous." Hideki took note as the shouting match of incomprehensible voices broke out. At the center of the enemy formation, a female individual wearing fine ornaments emerges, the alien soldiers huddling to protect her as she stood staring at Hideki. "Colonel, orders," the sergeant called out. As calls were made for reinforcements, the alarm bell started to chime. Defenses breached, defenses breached. Soon every claw in the fort would be ready for a fight, and with him down here, mass confusion would ensue as to what was going on. "Stand your ground! Do not engage! Shut up!" the colonel ordered, feeling he was not being heard over the shouting. "Do not engage unless engaged." He turned back to the visitors, eyeing them up and down. Some were scared, others possessed a steely-eyed determination. The first to enter pushed his way around the soldiers, who were evidently attempting to keep him back. All the while he quickly conversed with the elaborately dressed woman. Hideki tried another bow to the first individual, before tapping the hilt of his sword twice, letting it stay in its sheath. Hopefully, the gesture will be understood. "Someone get me Olat. Have him dust off anything that may be able to decipher what they are saying," Hideki ordered, as more footsteps came down the stairs into the dimly lit storeroom. Lieutenant Jovaran and his squad of heavy infantry, all armed and ready for a corridor fight. "Lieutenant, leave your men with me and go see to it that Major Ulu knows we have guests. They appear non-threatening and confused. Arrive via portal. I want everyone assembled and ready to push down here should that change. Sir, Move it, guardsman! Yes, sir. Sir, the woman is leaving, a private called out. Gay is following the presumed noble as she gently slipped back through the portal, some of her guards following behind, leaving but a handful of the alien soldiers, and the first to arrive remaining. It's both ways, Hideki noted, locking eyes with the first arrival. Do not let all of them leave. They may be able to close or move this portal and try again. I have a feeling they got either very lucky or unlucky with this one. The strange beings had not attempted to leave, much to Hideki's relief, and once the Major had arrived, preparations had been made for a translation circle. The strange furry people did not seem to know what was going on. The lead individual, now properly introduced as Chalukik, did make some effort at discerning what the ritual was, even taking notes in a small booklet. We are ready, sir, the mage confirmed, stepping back from his work. You may begin. General, you will want to read this. Dispatch from Colonel Hideki. Hideki? How does he have anything of interest to report? Oh, you have no idea, ma'am. This is the first time in our recorded over 2,000 years of known history where we may be able to gain a new ally against the dark. The opportunity must at least be considered. Councilman Trestok spoke up in support of the general. An emergency council meeting had been called in response to the news. Hideki had done well in convincing the aliens to stay at his fortress and start negotiations. They asked for aid and trade. Now came the matter of what should be given, if any. They are weak and, by the sounds of it, nearly defeated. It would be a net loss for us to be involved. We cannot spare the forces. Their main concerns seem to be food. They possess advanced technology and potent weaponry. Perhaps a trade agreement could be beneficial? Murmurs of agreement and objection were heard, as the council mulled over the possibility. The king overseeing the hall deep in thought. There were gains to be had, but the risks were great, and the costs even greater. More worryingly, Hideki's reports made great mention of the Dakar's secrecy and unwillingness to answer questions openly. But once more, the colonel's cunning had shown through. The aliens possessed little to no understanding of magic, and a well-placed enchantress had soon seen them talking freely. The picture that had been painted was a grim one. The Dakar are a falling race, and one far closer to extinction than they themselves. The war was going poorly. Something had to be done, but it fell to him to decide if this was the course to take. The hall fell silent as the grand doors at the far end swung open. It took the king a moment to notice the lack of noise, looking up to see Trifecta, a white dragon, eldest of the church and oracle of Itova, walking forward. All around the dragon came her retinue of high priests and paladins, lit censer burners swinging in rhythm. To see the dragon even leave her temple was a rarity. Doing so to take an active part in any civil discussion far more so. She could as easily send a runner. Her word would be heeded well enough. Yet here she was, in all her splendor. Intricate patterns painted upon her from tip to tail in blood. Spells woven and ready for a priest to unleash. The massive glittering crown set with sapphires resting atop her head. White silken sheets laying over her back obscuring much of her body. A display of wealth only the church and the crown could ever muster. Oracle! What brings you to our council? The king called out, standing to his feet and bowing, the whole council acting in kind. The gods have spoken, the dragon bellowed out, letting her words reverberate for but a moment. The world of the Dakar is a pure one. They know not of corruption and is blight. Yet it stands to fall to evil godless beings, white of feather but black of soul, and with it secrets long sought by our people. Go forth, my king, the gods command it. Vanquish the weak and their wickedness, save the Dakar's secrets. We will need them in the days to come. They are doing what? General Dantesh questioned, not sure if he should laugh or cry. They have declared a crusade against the weak. They seek permission to deploy as many forces as they can muster. It is my understanding they are even calling up reserves and militia for this. Second Claw Rivar replied promptly. Things were all of a sudden happening very fast, and there did not seem to be much stopping it now. How many are we talking? I don't know. Tens of thousands, surely, by the sounds of it. But they bring dragons. Hundreds of them. Their commander intends to use shock and surprise to carry the day. The Veek will not know what hit them. Or we won't, the general countered. If force like that should turn against us, it could be the end. You understand that, right? They also offer food, weapons, laborers, any supplies we can think of as well, sir. They seem quite committed to all this. And what do they want in return? That we stand beside them in their wars to come. And scientists, a lot of scientists. According to the head of their Royal Academy, they possess artifacts we may know the secret to. I think they might just think us more advanced, so we surely must know how whatever they found works. Shulik replied a little unsurely. Of course, he understood the danger, but this was everything they had ever dared hope for. He just prayed it wasn't too good to be true. We would become sworn to fight in their wars, then? We may just trade one death for another. Did you not say to yourself they were losing? Why are they willing to fight on two fronts? When I asked, they simply replied, the gods commanded it. That is another thing, sir. You read the reports on their use of magic, yes? I did. Hard to believe as it was. Their gods seem real, too. You can even see them in the night sky. They can see their heaven, too. Chiluki, this is no time for jokes. I am not joking, it is true. That is just impossible. So is magic. They also keep claiming my portal is magic. They too possess the ability to create portals as well, through the use of magic rituals rather than machinery. General! General! A runner called out, breaking the private meeting between the two. What is it? The Veek have attacked Eflond. The sky is white with birds. We must send aid. When it rains, it pours. 42nd Militia. Carver Heger, reporting. 600 souls ready for a scruff, sir. Second column, middle height, first wave. Close support, 9th Guard wing. Clean the skies and keep them that way. Your report to Colonel Trowler. May the gods be with you. The officer responded, going through his clipboard without even looking at Giselle or her company. Thank you, sir. You heard 'em, boys and gals. We're in the thick of it. Go on, then. Jeez, man, there must be 200 dragons here. I'm seeing guards, militia. Look, that one's for churches. And he's got a whole swarm of paladins and priests with him. They mean business today, lads and ladies. Stay sharp. This could get messy. I'm so fucking excited. Never been through a portal before, you know. None of us have, dipshite. Now get in line. We'll put on a good showing. Maybe even nick a medal or something. Giselle chuckled. Oh, how she had been waiting for something like this. She was going to wipe that stupid fucking smile off her brother, who made it into the guard, just as he swung a sword a bit gooder. She'd fucking show all of them back home. Or die trying. Or shut up, you pessimist. Oh, I think we're going to be fine. Look who it is. One of the men called out, pointing to the massive red dragon, who stood towering over even her peers, in shiny polished armor. Just counting the handhold, she had to be crewed by at least 24 of the guards' finest, and if Giselle's guesswork was accurate, at least one princess. That's Terexia, ain't it? Yeah, sure fucking waste of air. That means we got royalty here. I betcha she's heading this all up. Fuck, man. The church and the crown both sending their best. We are definitely gonna die now. There's a pair of unicorns over there, lads. All expected formations present and accounted for. We still have banners arriving as we speak. They will likely continue to trickle in as the day goes on. Very good. We go now, then. The last reports did not give the Dakar city much longer, and we are wasting daylight. Roll call, please. 9 wings or Royal Guard dragons, 47 total, 623 crew. 18 squadrons, Royal Guard soldiers. 4 squadrons lancers, 1 squadron lifeguards, 2 squadrons Royal Guard engineers, 6,720 souls. 11 dragons of the church, 132 paladins and 29 priests with them. 412 paladin squires on own wings. And sir, 3 unicorns, 587 souls in total. No, not fret at the number. They will prove themselves today. You can be sure of that much. Of course, sir. Capital Militia, 72 dragons, 35 squadrons worth of infantry. Battalion, 35 dragons, 12 squadrons worth. Cartagena, 18 dragons, 38 squadrons worth. Crown Hull, 18 dragons, 7 squadrons. Around 23,000 souls in total. 601, keep banners accounted for. 8,000 souls approximately. 21 dragons among them. Inquisition has shown up with 6 dragons and 900 troops as well, sir, at least. Likely more hiding amongst us. Gods above. I hope they understand they are not in command here today. I believe one of the high priests has already made that clear, sir. God save the church. This is the largest single force assembled in decades. This better be worth the gamble. Some 40,000 souls under my command. How did this ever come to pass? And in the middle of a war? What has been left undefended? Everything, sir. Most of this is city garrisons and inner keeps. This campaign better be swift, or we will come to regret this. The modifications needed on both sides to facilitate the transfer of troops were considerable. Luckily, work had begun as soon as the discussion of open trade was opened up. Now, though, they were for some reason opening their gaze to a horde of religious fanatics, while their cities burned in the distance. Every effort had been made to reinforce Iflond. The city was hanging on by a thread, but it was hanging on. Casualties were horrendous, much as they had feared, but if this gamble worked, the Veek would be taken completely by surprise. Even General Dentsu stared in poorly concealed amazement and horror at the armoured monsters the dragonettes led through the portal. Each the size of a small ship, and with dozens of soldiers hanging from their sides. A seemingly endless stream marched through alongside the dragons, as they were supposedly called. They were white and blue, winged and with long, thin tails, 7 limbs in all. And they were armed and armoured in Veek fashion. Steel plate, mail, metal scales, brigandine, cloth gambeson and leatherwork. Carrying swords, bows, lances, polearms and even knives. It looked primitive to the Dakar, but so did the Veek. They knew not to underestimate numbers alone, and the Veek possessed nothing that could face the dragons in the air. The plan was to force the Veek to ground, or slaughter them in the air if they took up the challenge. If they took to the tunnels, the dragons of the Dragonette army would burn and gas them out till there was nothing left alive in the tunnels below. Dentsu just hoped they would not lose too many of their own to the plan. It was dangerous. There would be friendly losses, but the Veek would have nowhere to go. There hadn't been the time to formulate anything better. The troops of the city did not even know what was about to happen. They could not risk the Veek discovering it ahead of time. Sir, do you think they will win? I hope so. God, I hope so. The general prayed as he watched the procession make their way out of the former laboratory. The larger of the dragons would need to crouch and squeeze to get to the surface doors wide enough for wagons, barely enough to let the beast pass. Then there was an echoing rumble that sounded throughout the room, the general turning slowly to look behind him, towards the portal once more. Yet another of the massive beasts now stood before him. This one was green like fresh-cut grass, like he still remembered, his massive amber-yellow eyes staring down at him from behind the wicked-looking helmet sporting scars of battle. The dragon raised a paw, extending a claw, easily a sword in its own right, and gestured at the general and his retinue, then towards his back. A wing being lowered to the ground as if to create a ramp. I think he wants us to climb on, sir. Second Claw Rivia responded, skeptically eyeing the massive beast. How do you even know it's a he? Dentsu responded, with suspicion taking a step back. She then. That will do, Second Claw. As the at-hand expert on dragons, I believe you should make a fine liaison. Do please report back after the battle. What? No! My lord, what's that? The A shouted out, gesturing at what was unmistakably flyers taking off from the Dakar capital heading their way. The Lord was surveying the battlefield from a spire they had long since cleared of the scum that was the Dakar. They were still fighting down below, but the Veek owned the skies, as was their god-given right. Surely they must be Veek. Have they perhaps crossed the mountains? Infiltrators, perhaps? There are hundreds of them, one of the lookouts called out in confusion. Luca taking out the telescope he had generously liberated from a Dakar officer earlier in the week. Putting the device to his eyes, he studied the incoming formation with interest. No, that is not Veek. They possess... By the Lord, what is that? They are massive, sir. My liege, has the Dakar bred flying war beasts? There are small ones too. Thousands. No, tens of thousands. What is going on? How is this possible? I do not know, my liege. Then be silent! Lucas shouted out in disgust, flinging a glow of acid at this useless lookout's face. He didn't even bother looking at the man as he screamed and writhed in pain, his face slowly melting away. You! Get me Lord Farquaad of the 2nd Legion. We need whatever reserves we have in the air immediately. You! Go and see to it that they below push on. We will not cede the day to those filthy mongrels. Riviere was not having a good day. The wind was screaming in his ears, and he could barely open his eyes against the wind. His hostage-takers/allies, clambering about the massive beast as if it was Tuesday, all either shouting at each other or throwing strange-looking hand gestures to communicate. Riviere scanned around at the Grand Formation. There was no refinement to it in his eyes, just dozens of smaller formations all flying together with a singular target in their sights. The green dragon he now called a mount seemed to form the center of his formation. Several smaller dragons holding position around the larger green. To either side of them flew 2 white dragons, both carrying what looked like robed figures, as well as armored individuals in what looked to be the very finest of armor. The dragons themselves were painted in blue and carried no armor, unlike their contemporaries. The amount carried varied greatly though. The massive green beast, currently hauling them aloft at a remarkable pace, was covered nearly from tip to tail. To Rivaire's considerable relief, there was a translator among his crew. He guessed it was a woman from her mannerisms, though it was difficult to tell, really. She had been holding a spell for them to be able to communicate and assist in keeping updated on what was happening. The Dragoness wanted a local commander close to the front, if it should prove necessary. He understood the sentiment, but did rather wish it wouldn't have had to be him, or that the general would at least have asked so he could have said no. Where is the enemy commander? The Dragonet officer that stood at the base of the dragon's head bellowed out as he scuttered ahead. They will be in the rear giving orders. Likely a tower with a good view. Look for the runners. Riviere called back. He knew Veek tactics and organization well. He had been trained to fight them for decades, after all. Understood. Old car, did you catch that? We need to send a welcome party. Of course, the dragon replied in a low rumble, turning her head just enough to reveal the evil grin adorning her face. Giselle took a deep breath before couching her spear. The tip reached out a good meter in front of her. Right, ready up, lads. Time to bag her some geese. she shouted out, more for her own amusement than anything else. Only those closest to her stood any chance of hearing what she was saying, after all. She pitched downwards towards the Veek, who were trying to rapidly close the attitude advantage they had on them. Giselle and her squadron held all the cards, the some 600 flyers swooping down in a gentle arc before starting to spread out and pick targets. They were higher, faster, and organized. The Veek were clearly scrambling to get a meaningful response in the air, even if there clearly were a lot of them coming up. Ears flat, wings tucked, and eyes wide open, they hurled towards the ground. One only needed the tips to steer, after all. They were heavier here, taking off had been a challenge, especially for the heavily laden dragons. But they were up, and now that weight was to their advantage. On their right high, an 18-odd-ton red of the local town militia came rushing by them, easily pulling 250 kilometers per hour in a dive like this, if not more. "Oh, it's barbecue time!" Giselle chuckled to herself gleefully, as she watched the dragon pull up slightly, to pass over the still climbing Veek formation. Then he let loose, spewing down in front of himself. A pillar of dark red fire spilled forth, shedding thick, black acrid smoke. Then came the screeching of burning birds, and flaming bodies started falling from the skies, some still flailing around trying to put out the burning gel, covering their bodies. "Damn, they burn good!" Giselle howled out with laughter as she picked her target, a lone Veek seemingly trying to flee the chaos around him as his burning comrades fell from the skies. "Moin!" Giselle chuckled darkly to herself as she hurtled at the poor bird. Chink, and her spear was gone, slipped right through her fingers like it was supposed to. Good hit. The Veek was toast. The spear went clean through and out the other side, the lifeless bird tumbling down behind her. "The fuckers are unarmed! No arms to hold them as they flap with arms!" she called out with a hysterical laugh, as she watched her comrades make their attempts behind her. Some hit, some missed. Fenar called out with a scream, clutching his face, trying to rip his helmet off as a whiff of smoke and steam trailed behind him, as he fell from the sky screaming. Another of the Veek, seemingly a brave one, held his course and spat something into the face of a diving dragonette, who missed her stab. "Is that acid?" "Calcutta, priority target, possible enemy commander." The voice echoed inside the venerable white dragon's head, Paladin Dantana speaking clearly through the link, as they battered their way through the discordant formation. "Show me," she responded, grieving herself to the link forged between them, by the crown the eyes of her paladin taking over her vision, showing a lone tower, rife with activity. "I see them. Diving." Wings were folded, and the massive beast began her rapid descent. The enemy were no fools. Their forces were thick and heavy between her and the prize. "Elan, illusion 1/5 right, 2/5 low. Anari, let us disappear." "Right away!" the priest called in unison, and Calcutta felt the sigils burn into her skin. She was a beacon of light in the darkness, the power needed to do great things. Her priests would wield it. With a shimmer, the great white dragon disappeared from sight, diving fast on partial wings. A great beast sprang into beam below her and to her right. The Veek reacted as to be expected. They went for the kill, diving and spitting their vile acid, trying to wear down the presumed beast, some brave ones even attempting to grapple with it. They passed straight through in confusion. The way was clear. She was swift, she was death. The will of the gods her mandate, and this army would be shattered under the might of Calador. "I want word sent to the garrison of Chibus. If we strike them now, we can crush them with sheer weight of numbers. And find me Eku. They seem to take the air from us. Well, they brought too few. Go. Go now, you fool. Bring the Imperial might down upon these abominations." "My liege, look!" one of the lookouts called out, as the runner took to the skies to deliver the word. Luca follows the man's gaze with contempt. What is so important that... The lesser lord stopped and stared at the massive, grotesque white behemoth that slowly shimmered into being, diving right at them, mouth agape. It wore a crown of gold to the height of a man, barbaric symbols painted astride it. Smaller figures clad in robes and armor wielding weapons and symbols astride its back and sides. "Take cover!" Luca called out. He knew not what was to come, but it could not be good, as he leaped from the tower into the skies away from the beast. He leapt for safety, falling as a rock, but for a moment, as did many of his men. Behind him, a boom and then a crack of ice could be heard. As he turned his head, the world passed slowly, the tower now clad in a sheet of ice, sharp shards sticking out like spikes. The beast passed overhead, pulling out of his dive, but shedding his cargo. Armored figures wielding weapons as they flew. "We must fight them on the ground," Luca called out, letting himself fall yet further towards the tunnels below. They held the topmost parts of the city. They would make their stand there. Once the Legion at Chibus arrived, the battle would be won, if they could but hold the new enemy in position for long enough. He made it to the entrances leading below, many of his men following close behind. He took one last look at the skies above. It was utter chaos, near impossible to tell who was winning. An aerial melee like this hadn't happened in all of his time in service. There was no enemy capable of mounting such a force in the air. But if the new opponent was so well versed in the air, then perhaps they would not be so familiar on the ground. They had been fighting the Dakar for decades. They knew the tunnels well. A lesson learned through blood and tears. We shall see how you fare on the ground, then. We shall see. There, sir, he survived, one of the squires called out, pointing to a finely armored bird fleeing the skies for the field below. Shall we pursue? By the will of the gods, he is ordered dead, Dan Tanner called out in response. And we cannot remain here. Dive! Among them, the Veek was swarming. Their attack had not gone unnoticed. There would soon be a reprisal, and so they had dived after their prey to the tunnels below, where darkness always hides, but today it be clad in white feathers. The abominations had taken the bait. They followed Luca into the safe tunnels below. Much of his personal guard had managed to do their duty well, not abandoning their lord even in retreat. Unbeknownst to him, Trico had even taken an arrow shaft destined for his back as they dove. The soldier would live, and his bravery would be rewarded by the Empire. But for now, they lay in wait. Hunters waiting for prey. They did not need to wait long. The click of claws on stone and the rustle of armor and weapons, making their way down the narrow corridor with haste. The trap was set. His men lined along the walls, hiding amongst the ruins of what were once Dakar homes and shops. The space was wide enough for 6 men to stand beside each other comfortably. They would surround and overwhelm the newcomers and show them what it meant to be Veek. Charge! Luca roared out, blade held high as he and his guards rushed forth. It would be just like the olden days, fighting claw and beak against the filth of the world. With a clash of swords, the two forces met no more than 3 of the newcomers to their 10. Luca watched as his men locked down the beasts and went for the chinks in their armor. It was gilded and polished, even in the dim light it shone, as did their steel. The man in front of Luca dueled the lead warrior, both men showing immense skill, but the monster had a Veek to either side as well. The left guard went in for a stab onto the armpit, his short dagger stopped by nothing but chainmail, disbelief flashing upon his face. The right went for the wings. Large and unarmored, his sword cut deep, rending through as the armored warrior pushed forward. Luca watched one of his best swordsmen be matched. Then as he went to parry, the opponent's sword simply slid through the Veek blade as if it was not there, carrying on across the poorly defended throat of Luca's personal guard. Witchcraft! The Lord called out as the beast lunged forward held high. Luca instinctively parried the blade. It was an easy blow to defend against and a reckless one. For but a second he pondered how such a warrior could make such a blatant error in relief. Then it turned to horror, as the parry was simply ignored by the ethereal blade. He stared at his impending doom as the blade grew closer and closer. Then a push came from his left, and the blade slipped by harmlessly. His guards had done their job, pushing him aside at the last possible moment. He stumbled to the ground in shock before quickly regaining his feet, and looking to the other two formidable warriors, as his assailant also stumbled to the ground, having missed his lunge. They were both surrounded, one Veek with a mighty mace laying into the creature's helmet, seeking to kill or disorient. Yet each blow slowed moments before striking its target, and the metal only rang with a hollow drum at each attack. "Under the chin! Go for the chin!" another Veek called out, as the sword was struck through his guts, though he did not falter, stepping forwards towards his would-be killer, driving his dagger up into the beast's seemingly barely protected chin, the blade sinking deep, and the creature gurgling blood as it fell to its knees. The mace wielder caught on as well, and with a mighty bash, forced the vile creature's defenses aside. One of his fellow legionnaires came in with a swing of his warhammer spike, first drawn right for the stone floor up into the creature's chin. The sound of shattering bone ringing clean like candy to Luca's ears. Luca looked to his would-be assassin, another of his guards on his back, stabbing at the opening in the armor, where the wings protruded through the shrouds, made the task difficult. The creature writhed and roared in pain as the shallow stabbing continued, the seasoned Veek guard doing well in keeping down the alien warrior. Luca held his sword high and proud. This battle was won. There was no beating the odds. "Witches are to be banned, but you are mine," he declared, as he stepped around to the front of the creature, looking to finish off this affront to their glorious crusade. The creature looked up at him, glowing lime green eyes hidden behind the master-crafted helmet, burning with hatred and fervor. It reached an arm, reached to its belt, withdrawing the glass bottle, staring at it for but a moment before wincing in pain once more. "Bit late for a toast," Luca laughed as he gestured for the creature to raise his head with the tip of his blade. "Come on, die with some honor, you vile thing." "Ethan, Tusva, Winota," the creature called out, smashing a delicate bottle against the stone floor, a fiery inferno erupting, engulfing them all in a flash. The roar of fire only drowned out by the screams of the remaining Veek. The Lord himself stumbled back, shielding his face, as the flames stripped his feathers and made his very armor glow, such was the heat, and he screamed. Soon it was over, and all that remained was the quiet crackling of embers, and the sounds of fighting above, the pained roar of a dragon's anguish, the thunk of steam rifles below.